You know, it's so ironic. You look in the Congo, you look, you know, even in today's time, you flip on the TV and you'll literally see people praying the prayer of chapter 4, verse 75 of the Quran. So the good Lord is saying, this is a reason why we fight. You know, I know some people say, no, fight is to spread Islam. My advice for Mr. David Wood is don't bring up that argument tonight. This is some good advice from him. But anyways, if you want to bring that up, that's fine, Now let's see how the companions of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam understood jihad. It says over here, Omar says in Sahih Muslim, so fighting, and this is talking about Surah 9 verse 29 again, because Surah 9 verse 29 are the marching orders. Okay? It doesn't really tell you why you should go and fight against the non-believers. You'll get why you should fight it in chapter 4 verse 75, that verse which I just quoted for you. It says over here, Omar said, and fight on behalf to secure their safety. So this is also a part of warfare. And this is the reason why so many Christians allowed the Muslims to enter their lands. We read also in history, after the Battle of Yarmouk, that when the Muslims entered their lands, they began dancing and playing music. You know, because why? Because the Christians were so oppressive to them. You know. Well, also another thing which a lot of people don't understand is Christianity was very diverse. You had many different versions of Christianity. But it was the Roman Christians who believed in doctrinal unity and subjected the other group of Christians to blood-curdling torture. So Omar comes and says, we will fight to secure your safety. And also, you have a very volatile situation. You have Jews who are just the victims of genocide. You have the Christians. And you have the pagans, now all fellow citizens. So obviously there's going to be, that's a very volatile mixture. There's going to be a lot of revenge attacks and stuff like that. Omar ibn Abdul Aziz, one of the most prominent Salaf, says, war will be waged for any enemies of the disbelievers. So this is also another reason why Muslims fight. You know, and this is something which also should be mentioned when we understand Surah 9 verse 29. You know, and I think the mistake David Wood has made, and people like Robert Spencer, is they read verse 9:29 and they read it with this presupposition that the Jews and Christians were innocent. You know, we are peace-loving people. Now, whether that's true today, I won't confirm or deny that, but that's not the historical context of the Quran. Whether you agree with it or not, that's not the way the Quran was authored. Okay, so at this stage of the game, you know, I think I need to help out Mr. David Wood here. I can't leave him like this. Okay. I got to take the stage here. I got to take the stand over here. That initial shock was over. Boy, I'm glad I remembered the presupposition. That presupposition, you know, was wrong. Okay. Now, you know, David, there is a hadith out there which says, and Prophet Muhammad said, and I have been ordered to fight against the people until they testify that there is no God but Allah, and if they do so, their property will be safe, and goes on like that. Don't bring up this hadith in tonight's debate. If you bring this hadith up tonight, you're going to be toast. All right, so that's just some advice, okay? Now, I remember I think I was talking to Sam and Dave about this. I pointed out, hey, listen, you know, Surah 9 verse 29, this is, I think it was on Avia and Sat. I said, you know, Surah 9 verse 29, this verse came and saved the Jews from the genocide of what the Christians were doing to the Jews. That is a very good thing. It's very interesting what the response was. You know what the response was? Oh yeah, who's going to save them from the genocide of Muhammad? And I remember I was just sitting there, I just kind of froze. I'm like, what? You know, because they didn't really refute my argument. Rather, what they're saying, what they're trying to show, is that Muhammad was a bad man. Muhammad was no better. Muhammad was not consistent. Okay, but even this false argument, let's just agree with it. That doesn't prove what I'm saying is wrong. It's still a historical fact. You see? So you know, I just want to point that out tonight, that trying to prove that Muhammad was a bad man, Muhammad was no better, Muhammad was not consistent, doesn't prove my argument to be false. David Wood's job tonight is to either agree or disagree with the 7 arguments for that. And there's also a lot of people say, well, what about Muhammad? Didn't he say to kill the apostates? Which again, I disagree. Because one of the arguments there was, I said, look, Surah 9 verse 29 came to fight for the religious freedoms of people, a fundamental right which the Christians of the 6th century denied. So they'll say, but you see Muhammad taught to kill the apostates, which actually isn't really true, but we can get into that, if time persists, we can get into that. But let's hypothetically go along with the canard. That doesn't prove my argument to be wrong. It still is true that the Christians were a threat to religious freedom. They subjected other religions to horrendous acts of torture and violence. Islam and Surah 9 verse 29 came to end this. And whether Muhammad made an exception, a possible exception for the apostates, okay, but that doesn't make my argument to be false. Now, it doesn't mean those issues are not important. They're important. I'd love to debate that. But within the time frame of tonight's debate, we'll see if we could tackle that issue. So, I actually have a challenge for my friend, Mr. David Wood. If he can stay away from it, he can address the arguments which I have just presented to him. You could find those same arguments on my website. Go to examinethetruth.com/Wood, and you can see those 7 arguments. But if he could stay away from trying to debate, trying to refute my argument, saying Muhammad was a bad man, Muhammad was no better, Muhammad was not consistent, if he can stay away from that, I'm going to throw everybody a pizza party tomorrow night. Same place, same time. This is going to be the pizza party challenge for Mr. David Wood. Let's move on to the last argument. And that is, God blessed the world through the violence which you read in Islam. By opening up the doors of science for the European world. But that's just not my opinion. That's actually what your school systems are teaching here in California. Let me read to you what they say. It says over here, the Renaissance and the scientific revolution in Europe drew upon the discoveries and contributions made by Muslims to the field of mathematics and sciences. Yet these accomplishments remain unappreciated. And that's actually very true. People don't appreciate that. But let me back up here for a second. That's chapter 9, verse 29 they're talking about. It was the jihad which is what gave the Renaissance and the scientific revolution to Europe, which the historian, and this is actually what California school systems are teaching you. That's jihad which did that, David Wood. MedievalHistory.net tells us. All Western advances in civil engineering, mathematics, chemistry, and medicine, and astronomy were founded upon the medieval sciences of Islam. Wait a second. That's Surah 9 verse 29 which did that. And here's how. Surah 9 verse 29 is what paved the path for all of this. And here's how. The verse encouraged Muslims to leave the Arabian Peninsula and fight against the non-believers and build a new society. This new society laid the foundation for all of the scientific advancement which the historians and the scholars are telling us that Islam gave us. It's jihad which gave you that. Thus God bless the world through the violence which you see here. All right, so these are the 7 arguments which we have of why Surah 9 verse 29 is one of the most magnificent verses of the Quran. And I guess my time's up. And so I'll go ahead and ask Mr. David Wood to come. Thanks.